Good afternoon and welcome back to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm your host Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq. We've been coming to you live from the Singapore FinTech Festival. Joining me for this segment, we have Vinay Mohan. He is the director with ConsenSys. Thank you so much for joining us at the FinTech Festival. And I look at your Twitter feed, and you guys have a number of projects going on globally. How is blockchain changing the world?
Well, Jill, if you think about the last 100 years and possibly the many centuries before, we've traditionally lived in a very centralized world. Planet Earth is a heavily centralized place that's bought and sold by governments and corporations. The underpinnings of society and business and modern day technology as a whole is built on trust, mostly centralized, for which we pay a very high price. Blockchain promises to change a lot of that because it is trying to usher in this whole new phenomenon called decentralization. Rather, it's one of the many ways to achieve decentralization. And one of the ways that blockchain really supports that is to take away this high price of trust that you and I have to pay to, let's say, a bank or a lawyer or any middleman traditionally. And this changes constructs between human beings, between businesses. And you can apply this logic in a very simple way to thinking about the way money is printed and spread. So Bitcoin, which was the first mass adopted use case for blockchain, changed all of that. And Bitcoin basically said, I don't need a central bank to transact between the two of us. I can do that with a cryptographically secure wallet on my phone, and I can send you what is a substantial store of value, which the rest of the world can trust and believe in and use without this centralized infrastructure. So I think blockchain is here to stay because humanity as a whole, the whole planet is moving towards decentralization.
It's really interesting that you bring that up because I feel like a lot of people who haven't had exposure to cryptocurrency really struggle to understand this store of value, right? So trust has been built into gold, trust has been built into typical fiat currency, right? Yep. And I think that's one of the hurdles when it comes to mainstream adoption. Would you agree that that's kind of understanding what that value is going to be?
Yeah, absolutely. It's also that we've taken for granted that gold is a standard or government printed paper money is a standard, and that's sort of become an accepted norm. Blockchain is on the verge of challenging that. We are out there to say that not a lot of this has happened by choice, a lot of it is by chance, and that's not necessarily the best sort of future world we want to build for the planet as a whole. Right. So we're looking at a whole new age in which trust can be reassigned, trust can be reimagined, and how we can start putting trust in assets that matter to us more than what matters to other people around us.
Right, so and this is a conversation that you and I have had before, and what we're hearing at the FinTech Festival today, there's a number of amazing concepts that are being discussed with over 400 exhibitors here. We have 40,000 people here all coming together to discuss these concepts. When do you think this could potentially be put into practice? Is this a one-year thing, 3-5-year thing?
We've seen mainstream usage of cryptocurrencies fairly successfully applied for the last couple of years. We are seeing a lot of government. Singapore, for example, is the best place for all this to happen. We're seeing a steady stream of government interest coming in saying, we've got great centralized systems, but now we can do something totally different with decentralization and blockchain. We can reimagine the way government and citizen interaction takes place. We can reimagine the way things like land titling, a traditional 1,000-year-old sort of government function is being looked at nowadays. So I would say we're pretty much in the thick of it. Enterprise adoption has not been as healthy as we would have liked it to be, but we're getting there.
But it's still relatively young.
It is very young. We like to say this quite often. If this were the age of the internet, we're probably in year 92 or 93.
Oh, so we're very young.
We've got to give it time. We have to understand blockchain is trying to solve for a systemic problem that's affected humanity since the dawn of time. We are trying to reimagine trust, and that's not going to happen that easily. So we've got to take everyone along. It has to be an inclusive process, which is why events like this are very important to us, and places like Singapore are important to us.
That's a really interesting perspective. Thank you so much for sharing that with me.
Appreciate it.
And thank you so much for joining me today. We're coming to you live from the Singapore FinTech Festival. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.